New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network is proud to present Cosmic Prayers, your weekly shift, Mondays at 11 Mountain Time, with your host, Laura Topper. The Cosmic Prayers, live from the UK. And now, here she is, Laura Topper.
Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. I am Laura Topper and I'm here joining you, and you're joining me wherever you are in the world, whoever you are, here on New Thought Media Network for today's very, very special broadcast of the Cosmic Prayer. I just feel so blessed to be here right now at this time. I'm here in the UK. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. If it's morning time or wherever you are in the world, in the US, then right now I have an amazing guest coming on our show. Somebody that is so empowered, inspirational as a spiritual leader, and as spiritual leader for Centers for Spiritual Living, Reverend Dr. Viljoen has given so much to our community and to the planet with the Science of Mind teaching. And with all of the books that he has authored along the way, beautiful books, which we're going to be talking about, and the work that he's done as an author and as a leader and as an inspirer and as a minister. And why I feel so blessed is that Reverend Viljoen served at the World Ministry of Prayer. So I'm really going to ask him about his experience of prayer and what that means for him personally. And so without further ado, the other thing though, I just want to say is that we are opening up a private Zoom room. If you would like to join Reverend Viljoen afterwards, then you are welcome to come in. It's on a love offering basis, and the Zoom link will be put up. Diego will be putting that link up throughout the show, and you can join. So stay with us here for this incredible conversation. If you want to be a part of a deeper conversation and join us, then you are welcome. And for now, though, I'm going to just say hello and welcome to Reverend Dr. Viljoen. Welcome to the Cosmic Prayer.
Thank you so much, Laura, and what a wonderful introduction that was. All those beautiful things you said, and especially in light of the New Thought teaching, that kind of accolade and brilliance is in you and me and every single person listening in equal measure. So I feel like you're introducing the world when you say those beautiful things. Thank you.
Oh, it is a real honor for us, for you to be here, because the work that you do is incredible. I know on a day-to-day basis, the work that you're doing and the consciousness and intention that you have to bring this teaching to people in the world. And this teaching very much is about prayer. Right. And about how we use prayer and internalize that and use it for our lives.
And a beautiful, unique approach to prayer.
Yes, a very unique approach to prayer and very refreshing, and one that not many would realize, that we can use prayer in this way. Yes. to really transform our own consciousness.
That's exactly at the heart of our form of prayer, the transformation of our consciousness, the radical change in direction in our consciousness, so, which is what attracted me to New Thought prayer in the very first place.
And I wanted to ask you, because I was reading in your biography, you know, that you discovered the science of mind teaching on an airplane. That's a great way to discover it. And it just called to you, to your heart, and you knew that you had to find out more.
Yes.
And was it because of prayer? Were you at a time in your life where you were in need of wanting to understand how to communicate with yourself more deeply, and prayer was a part of that?
I think I was in the place that so many of us find ourselves when we discover something like New Thought or a good therapist or some kind of self-help. I was fed up with life and the world, and I was about to take a very long flight, and I stopped by a bookstore, and there was this book. It said A New Design for Living, and I thought, oh, sure, why not give that a try? I had no idea that it was written by our founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, Dr. Ernest Holmes, and I read the book. And suddenly it occurred to me halfway through that this gentleman was articulating ideas that I had thought myself, I had intuitively reached for, but didn't know there were other people who thought that way. So it was like a coming home in the middle of the air, flying along. And when I got to where I was going, I had to change planes and fly another long flight. And I read it a second time, because I was so taken with the idea that there is a power for good in the universe all around us, flowing through us, that was the source and foundation and the method and the power of our prayer. And I wanted to know more about it, because I was raised in a tradition where prayer was a little more formal, and we repeated prayers, and there was a sort of a disconnection between my heart and the prayer, even my mind. So when I learned in this book that prayer was more like a contemplation in the style of a meditative mindful practice of me getting my mind right, things started to fall into place. And I had a radical turn, a shift in my whole understanding of what prayer could be for me. And that was from that little book, A New Design for Living. And what followed from that was I was like somebody in a desert starving for this information. I read every single thing I could get my hands on and learned how to pray in a new way, which meant dismantling a lot of common misconceptions I was had taken root in me, you know, in particular, the idea of praying to something or someone and praying to get something for myself or someone. What a shift that was. A tremendous amount of self-responsibility emerged. How do I change in my mind and heart? How do I change to get to a place where I understand and accept and embrace the truth of my spiritual being? That was the journey.
That is amazing. I love what you've said. The thing about being in the sky and lifting your consciousness, I mean, you were metaphysically, you know, that's such a symbolism, isn't it? You being in the sky on a plane and reading this book, lifted higher, and there you are, and your adventure, I think more of a journey, an adventure to where you are right now. And has your conception of prayer changed over time from that first point?
Every day. And I think that's the way it ought to be. Everyday prayer, we call it spiritual mind treatment, correct, in New Thought. Everyday prayer is made fresh from the current understanding that I have of the divine. So it's going to be bigger tomorrow.
Yes.
So that's why, you know, some of my old influence heritage, I still want to, if I get a good prayer, I want to cling to it and hold it and do it again. And what I know now is, no, I'm going to grow in understanding as a result of a good prayer. So tomorrow, it's going to be a new experience. Because at the heart, the beginning of our prayer practice is to take the time to recognize, where am I currently, and how do I understand this cosmic reality, this creative field we call mind. So it being infinite, there's no end of my possible understanding and deepening of it. So there's no destiny to arrive at, now I've got it, now I understand, prayer's done. Oh no, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and there's going to be new depths to go down to, new heights to expand to, new ways to describe that which is beyond words. And that's what's thrilling about it. It's alive, it's genuine, it's sincere, it's exciting, and it's part of my everyday. In fact, I wonder sometimes, how did I manage before I learned how to pray?
Yeah, isn't it amazing how when we understand these tools, and we reflect, well, I do as well, reflect back and think, wow, how did I? And I did. I remember that Edwene Gaines, she would, we saw her, we were at the convention when she came to the UK. We were at the Science of Mind convention performing, and she was on stage and she said, I don't ask myself how I was born. I know, it happened. Of course, I didn't need to know. And so I suppose that's the response here, isn't it? We get by, but it doesn't mean that we get by consciously with that awareness.
Yes, and we're using our minds and our creativity and our emotions just in an unskilled way.
Yes,
in
an unskilled way.
Of learning metaphysical prayer, it's not just something I do for 2 seconds in the morning. It bleeds out into the rest of the day and adjusts my self-talk, the way I respond to people. Yes. And so now I'm learning to manage, to navigate the world in a more mindful way. And whereas previously I was getting by, like you said,
Yeah.
And sometimes not too well, because it's like I've got a new puppy right now. And so when he's not monitored and not being taken care of, chaos is the result. It's not is bad, right? It's because of all the energy and creativity in him. So now, as he is learning more social skills and he's learning what his job is in the world, and now joy of a new kind becomes available. And that's what was happening for me. I started to discover a joy of a new kind being in the world, because I was learning about my relationship to the world. And when I say world, I mean with an uppercase W.
Yes.
The thing itself, whatever this is that we call the divine, that.
So is that what led you to become involved with the World Ministry of Prayer? And to then become a teacher of that, to be inspiring others to actually take that role on as well. That's the leadership in you, isn't it?
Well, the World Ministry of Prayer has a long, long history in our movement. There was a time in Los Angeles where there was a building that housed booths with prayer practitioners, and they would take calls from all over the world. And
I just love that.
Before computer internet days, this was all analog. And I heard about that and I thought, I want to do that, because I was a young prayer practitioner and I wanted to save the world, right? And so I signed up, and I immediately had a reality check, because the very first call I got was from Australia. I did the early morning shift so I could pick up different countries, and was with a young mother whose infant child was going in for an operation. And she had found the number on a magazine I don't know where. And she called up and told me that her infant child was going in for an operation. And all of a sudden, the weight of the responsibility landed on me. And I remember thinking to myself, what am I doing? This is serious. and I did my spiritual mind treatment to the best of my ability, thinking I have done a disservice to this family because I don't feel it. I don't know if I believe it. And when it was done, the prayer, the young mother said to me, and I'll never forget this, she said, "Oh my God, that was the most beautiful thing I ever heard. And I'm filled with so much peace and so much confidence. Thank you." And I was like, what? And that's when I realized I thought it was me doing the work. My job was to create the container. She had the deep recognition and realization. She had it. And I was just helping in that moment. Now, after that moment, when I felt so unsure of myself, I knew that my work was to get to the same place that she was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have so much respect for the World Ministry of Prayer. And, it's still available today. You can access the World Ministry of Prayer online, and prayer practitioners will take your requests, and they will make spiritual mind treatments for you. It's a very beautiful process. I invite everyone to take advantage of the World Ministry of Prayer. We're working on re-energizing it and making it available with current and new technology, like a chat bot that'll answer your questions while you're waiting for a practitioner. So that's all coming soon.
That is so exciting. I'm so excited by that. And I believe that, if Science of Mind or Centers for Spiritual Living, I'm going to ask you this question. If Centers for Spiritual Living were purely based on prayer ministry, do you think it would be doing its work without anything else?
Well, it's not an either or, right? There's for all of us to do everything. Of course, prayer is very, very, very important. And then there's the part about, well, what did the prayer awaken in you? What's yours to do as a result of the prayer? So we have the prayers, and we have the doers, and we have the teachers, and we have all of us together journeying in our own pace in the same direction. And that's important. So I've got to watch myself, because when I'm enthusiastic about something, then everybody should be.
Well, we're all enthusiastic here about this teaching.
Yes.
Because of the power of this teaching. And I suppose that people find it in different ways, as you've just said, whether it's through prayer or whether it's through an affirmation, or which we know it's all prayer ultimately, but we all find it in our own individual ways, whether it's from listening to somebody giving an incredible talk, or through a practitioner saying something in the moment. Yes. And it's shifting something.
It's by attraction, right? Yeah. It's like the energy, or let's say the consciousness that you and I have when we're at the supermarket. Or, that consciousness attracts people. For example, we had in a local board, board of trustees, we had consultation with an attorney to figure out a copyright issue. So we brought in the attorney. He came to our board and he listened to our discussion. And when the discussion was done, he said, "I have never heard a board of trustees discuss a controversial issue with such respect." And he joined the center as a result. So you see, wherever we are doing our business, we don't have to hold the banner of the teaching up high. We have to hold our consciousness up high. And then by attraction, people come into it. Because we're not a preaching movement. We don't proselytize. We just be the result of our practice.
Yeah. And so how, now in this, let's move forwards now to where we are, 2021. I'm sure you've been asked this question so many times, or versions of, how can we use prayer? And maybe if you would like to just also at the same time talk about prayer and its simplest form, how we can use it in its simplest form right now, for anyone that that's listening or that listens later, because this will travel, and it could be a tool for people to help them how can we use prayer in its simplest form right now with what's going on
Yes,
on our
exactly.
planet?
So let's say a person has no knowledge of the 5-step system called spiritual mind treatment, but they still want to use their beautiful minds to effect a change for them in their world and the world around them. Well, we have this thing called, I call it our beautiful imagination, that we can use, that we can take the time to imagine a greater yet to be, not too far in the distant future, in which it is a post-pandemic reality, and then place ourselves mentally in that picture. What are we doing? What are we feeling? And when we are doing that creative visualization, let's call it, in a way, we are starting to use a form of affirmative prayer. So Don Miguel Ruiz called it dreaming the new dream. Who was that beautiful metaphysical teacher? I'll remember his name right after the show. He invited us to use our imagination just before we go to bed. Imagine the outcome you're looking to have, place yourself in it, and then go to bed assuming that it's already done. See, there's an innocent playfulness. Now, of course, there's a lot more to it than that. But to answer the question, how do I start right now? Start imagining where it is you want to be. Start imagining that. That is very useful as a starting point. There's a lot more to wrap around it, but in the beginning, that's important. What I have to say, though, is do pay attention to what comes up, the self-talk, if there's any clinging or desperation, because these are the things, negative criticism, clinging, that work against the free-flowing, joyful nature of our creative mind. So sometimes it's like peeling back all of the layers of things in there, and that can be best done with assistance, with a licensed prayer practitioner or a life coach or a therapist or whoever it is, because we're communal beings and we do well helping each other. Still, creative visualization is one of the entry points for affirmative prayer. And if you find your mind is too active, the power of journaling, sitting down and writing about what it is you're looking to embody and experience in your life. Because writing slows down the thought process to something more humane, right? In the realm of mind, it's going like this super fast and it's landing everywhere. Once you write it down on a page, now it's fixed and you can look at it. Then again, I must look, what am I writing about? Because if I start writing about the problem, if I start writing about what other people have to do, then, I've got work to do. I've got to resolve all of my feelings. I have to express them, because the creative part must set aside all of the complaint for a moment. I can come back to the complaint. But in the prayerful part, I'm turning entirely toward the desired outcome. You know, some people say, well, isn't that bypass? I said, no, it's giving equal time to that which makes our hearts sing. Because otherwise, you know what it's like, just reading the newsreel all the time, the bad news, the bad news, the bad news, the bad news. Of course, we must deal with the news of our respective nations. But am I giving time to the creative generation of new ideas also? That's important.
Absolutely. And I believe that, we can't think two things at one time, can we? We can only focus on one thing at one time. We try to multitask and do all this stuff. However, we can only really put our attention on one thing at a time. So, no, I don't think it's a bypass, because a bypass we work on. We do the work in there, and yet we need to have that knowing that of coming back to truth, to knowing that God, the divine, is working as and through everything right now, whatever it might look like. And I think for me this year, that's been a real challenge for me to actually own that that affirmation. This too is God expressing.
Right.
And to know that,
Yes.
to put that into practice that's become my prayer.
Yes.
This too is God expressing.
How is this experience part of the unfolding of perfection? Could this be an answer to prayer?
Yes. And I heard you saying that in a talk once, a couple of years ago. You said, how can you consider that this is part of wholeness unfolding? I loved that. I loved hearing you say that.
Right,
It
because
made me
alternate is terrifying.
yes. And although it may seem terrifying right now, because for many people they're going through so much, and heartache and loss and loneliness and suffering and pain and health and all of it, and yet I think with that question, can you consider that this is part of wholeness unfolding? For me, that shifts the whole thing.
Yeah, right. And then look to the way people are connecting, and how people and communities are strengthening, and our inventiveness going through the roof. All of these things out of necessity. People who are never going to use the internet are now becoming smart users. People who are reaching out and creating intimate connections in the way they didn't think were possible. And at the same time, we're realizing now how we long for each other, how important connection is, how sincerely valuable community is. Oh my God, this is a gift. I can see in the post-pandemic reality, there's going to be 6 months of just touching each other in close proximity in our spiritual communities. That's a beautiful lesson we've learned. And also, now, as you say, people are suffering. This is starting to come up in awareness now. The isolation is now magnified. We're seeing the effects of that. So it's fine-tuning us to take care of each other. Organizations are emerging to help people stay connected. There's so much good going on simultaneously while there is so much suffering going on. So giving equal time to the whole of what's going on is important to me, so that I will not become myopic and start thinking everything is a disaster, because it's not. I mean, look at this show we're on together. Here we are. How wonderful is this? And still I've got to deal with whatever's next in my own town.
Yes, exactly. And that is the power of prayer, isn't it? Because then when we're doing that prayer consciously, we can shift the way that we perceive it, and we can allow the love of God to be the essence of reminding us in that prayer. And right. I know when I come out of prayer, then I feel changed. I feel changed by it.
Yes.
Ed, this is, Laura here on New Thought Media Network. You're on the Cosmic Prayer with Reverend Dr. Edward Viljoen. It's just such an amazing thing that you're here and speaking, and you're going to be in the Zoom room afterwards. Maybe if Diego could put up the Zoom room link for anybody that's listening right now, if you'd like to join us in that Zoom room, then we welcome you wherever you are in the world to come and join and pose your questions to Reverend Viljoen, because I know that you're, there's so much. I could talk with you here for hours and hours and hours, but that's not possible. It is possible, but I don't think Reverend Brzezinski would like it if I just carried on with you here for 3 hours talking about prayer.
So it takes a little bit of attention to really become intimate with this new way of prayer. So I think that a lovely opportunity. I hope people feel inspired to explore what New Thought is and to visit the World Ministry of Prayer and dig into it. It's a life changer. It's a game changer.
Yes. And even if it's simply to use it to for one thing in our lives. It doesn't have to be about, changing our whole life at one time. It's just, take one thing at a time, slowly, and rebuild a new foundation.
Say at the end of my messages, I used to say, if you cried yourself to sleep last night, or if you feel incomplete, then go to a prayer practitioner. And then my prayer practitioner came to me and said, Dr. Edward, not everybody cried themselves to sleep last night. Some people just want to celebrate the good and want more of it. I said, you're right. Prayer is not only about addressing the wrongs in the world. Prayer is for the celebration of that which is right. So in a way, prayer is to establish me in the awareness of the everywhere presentness of the divine, and then to attempt to see the rest of my day through that filter so that it amplifies what is already joyful too.
I love that. I love what you've just said about, it allows us to see life through the filter, or without the filter, through the eyes of love, as God sees us, as the divine sees us. Oh, Reverend Viljoen, it's just such a pleasure that you're here and inspiring me and the listeners right now to take up prayer, to learn more about it, and even if you know all about it already, to be using it more in daily practice. Would you like to give a prayer now? Would you be inspired to give a spiritual mind treatment before we leave and go into the Zoom room?
Yes, absolutely. And there is another resource, and I ought to have given you this link earlier, but there is an affirmative prayer library online. Then you can search for just those words, Affirmative Prayer Library, and it's years and years of spiritual mind treatments for anybody who wants to drop in and sample some of the language of spiritual mind treatment. I forgot about that resource, and it's true. Affirmative Prayer Library online. It'll come right up in the search link.
Oh, thank you, Diego, for putting that up there. There's one question I'd like to ask you, just because you've just mentioned this.
Yes.
What do you feel about written prayer is in relation to speaking prayer simply, from the heart in the moment? Do you believe written prayer can be just as effective, writing it out and reading it over and over? Or
so this is such a tender question, right? It really depends where you come from. Like I mentioned, I came from a faith tradition where repeated prayer was part of the practice. So there's not only one way to pray, there's so many ways to pray, and there is some validity to repeated prayer, like mantras. Affirmations are a form of repeated ideas. Spiritual mind treatment is a unique creature. It's made fresh daily.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's made, it's complete. And so if I feel like I'm going to treat again for the same topic, I start all over again. So there really isn't such a thing as the same treatment. It's already done.
Yeah.
So then if I find a treatment that's written, it's probably because somebody is sending it to me. I'm still learning, and there's some value in transporting the words of treatment over email, and I get it. Now I have to watch myself because of my heritage. If I get a good spiritual mind treatment, do I start to think that the power is in those words on the page or in that person who wrote it? Because then I start to abdicate my responsibility. I'm not going to do any work. That person did it. That prayer on the paper is the check is. And if I say it hard enough, then something will happen. You see, and I have departed from new thought in that moment. I have now transferred the power onto the paper. Now, having said that, are there some spiritual mind treatments that I read over and over again? Yes, because the words are like poetry and they evoke a feeling in me and I want to hear them again. So what I do is I remind myself I'm reading it for that purpose of being inspired.
Okay.
But I must do the spiritual mind treatment again fresh. Now, that was a big, long answer.
Thank you. An important answer. An important answer, because it's giving people permission to really use their own imagination and knowing and connect right there in the moment.
Yes.
Without needing to write anything down. It's the feeling, isn't it, in the moment, and the conviction.
So shall I close us with a
Please
prayer?
do, yes. And what is it you feel right now to make the purpose of the prayer? Because that's an important thing, isn't it, to know the purpose?
I think the purpose is for us to acknowledge and become familiar again with that divine presence, so that it may guide us to do whatever is ours to do. All of your listeners, you and me, will have different purposes and outcomes, so we will make it be universal in its appeal.
Okay.
All right?
Great. Thank you. We're ready.
All right. So I speak in the first person. When I say I mean the universal I, the I of whoever is listening. And I begin by recognizing that there is only one thing going on over here. It is that creative field we call mind, I call mind, is known as mind. That which is eternal, permanent, and persistently available in its full form everywhere. That's why I say there's nothing else going on. Just that mind. And I live in that, I think with it, and I move in it, as does everybody hearing these words, all of us. And through this recognition and identification, I place myself in an attitude of openness to the true nature of this divine mind, so that I am a willing vessel for its expression in this world. I'm available to it, and it has free-flowing access through me. This causes me to know, like one great teacher said, that I am in the right place right now, successfully engaged in the right activity, and everything else that I do today is done from this awareness. So now my spiritual eyes are wide open to see through the filter of the divine, and my mind is open to understand that intuition comes to me and shows me what to do and how to do it, what to say and when to say it. And there emerges a sense of rightness that I depend on. So much so that I feel my joy arising at knowing this. And this gratitude allows me to further relax and to know that these words that I've spoken have the outcome that is perfectly tailored to each person's need who is listening, and mine also. And I say, and so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you very much for having me today, Laura.
Thank you, Reverend Viljoen, for being here, for being so present, for sharing, for inspiring our listeners. Oh, and here, thank you, Diego, for putting this up. This is your personal Amazon page where people can find your incredible books. They look so interesting. I'm going to read through that and be ordering a few Kindle editions there. I love that, seeing good at work. And you were explaining about seeing good at work and your grandmother, how she inspired you for that.
Yes.
Beautiful. And the power of meditation. And maybe at another time, another point in time, you would like to come back onto the Cosmic Prayer and talk through some of your books and how they've inspired you to on your journey as a spiritual leader.
Absolutely. Yes.
So thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to be hopping over onto the Zoom room. The link is here. Okay. Diego has put the link up here. For anybody that's listening right now, you can click on that link. In a few minutes' time, we will be there with Reverend Robert Brzezinski and Reverend Edward Viljoen, and we will be taking your questions, and Reverend Viljoen will be answering, and you can get a deeper, closer understanding of prayer and any topic that you want to bring up that's spiritually related to wholeness and oneness. That's why we're here, isn't it? So we look forward to seeing you there in a few minutes over on Zoom. And until then, is there anything else that you'd like to say? A few words before we leave here?
Oh, goodness. When I said earlier on, imagine a post-pandemic reality, that I'm really big on that right now. I really want to invite people to begin to open up the pathways of their thinking about that time beyond, when we're not going back to the way things were, but what is the place that we're going to? The importance of us using our creativity to generate that, the excitement around that, and to feel it. So please do take on the task of being a post-pandemic reality generator.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's so inspiring for each of us. We need to hear that, because we don't want to get stuck in this slump of this is how it is.
No, we must create or die. Up
and die to the old. Yeah. Thank you for being here with us, Reverend Viljoen.
I'll flip over to the Zoom room right now.
We'll be in Zoom. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, and we'll see you next time on the Cosmic Prayer.
Thank you for listening to Cosmic Prayer, your weekly shift with Laura Topper on the New Thought Media Network. If you've enjoyed this programming, please tell a friend and join us again next week for Cosmic Prayer, your weekly shift with Laura Topper.
Wanna play? Come to our yard. New Thought Media Network spotlights you. Saturdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, Spirit Says Sing. Our stage is open for musicians, singers and speakers, visual artists. Shine with us, live. It's easy, just click the link in the comments and be ready to soar. Spirit Says Sing. Saturdays at 6, right here on New Thought Media Network.